Okay, we're all ready to go. Recording. 60 seconds, we'll go live.
Oh, I'm scared. I told Betty. She goes, "Are you're scared, aren't you?"
That's what they say, isn't it? That's what they say in some of the comments. Just laugh at me.
Yeah. Too funny, man. These people are idiots, man. I don't know.
Right, let's do this.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then there is a link to nathanoakley.com below this video. There's also a link to PayPal, Patreon, and crypto if you'd like to support this channel. There's also a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. Now, I'm joined by Quantum Eraser. How are you doing? Very good to have you.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you too. So both yourself and myself were instructed to watch a video on the Jose JG Gonzalez channel that involved Anthony. He'd been up very, very early one morning and happened to catch Jose live, joined and instructed us both to watch it, which we dutifully did. And the reaction is what this show is about, basically. So this is why we're having a show now, to react to some of the things that were discussed in that show. So I don't know if you want to kick straight off with it, John, or if you want to give a little preamble. It's entirely up to you.
It's a full-time job keeping up with this stuff, man. Keeping up with these retards. Anthony, you need to take a break, man, because I had other missions to do, and then you forced me to listen to this, and you know there's going to be a reaction. I think he did it on purpose. Yeah, and then he left us out here. You know, he went to bed and leaves us out here.
Yeah, he was quite insistent that he wanted to join. And then I messaged him, "You're going to join?" No, I'm tucked up in bed. Well, I will listen. Thanks very much.
Hashtag same team.
Yeah, well, at least he's a viewer. That's all we can ask for. Sleeping Warrior, subscribe today. Okay, if you're good, I'm going to start off with the first clip. Is that all right by you?
Yeah, well, let's preface it by saying who we're talking about here today. It's going to be Jose, Sean Hufford, and some guy, I think his name's McToon, something like that. I don't know him, but he's going to join the party and become at least not, if not a star, then a associate director or what a stand-in. But we're going to get to him. The reason why we're doing it is because not only do we want to punk these retards, because as you're going to see, this is going to be a joke, but they have similar arguments. You know, all these ballers have the same arguments. So we're just going to eviscerate those. So anytime you're ready, you could go ahead and start at 129.35 and stop at 130.33.
While you look for that, Riley, I think maybe a week ago or so, 4 or 5 days, I did a little special nighttime, and I Googled all the 10 references that you've been giving, the 10 you presented today, doing the definition, just for the hell of it, just for fun. Because if you give me a reference, I'm gonna research what that whole page university is gonna give me. So if you accept one definition from that reference, it means everything else must be true and you should hold it dear to your heart. And it gave me a lot of astronomy, a lot of shape of the earth, a lot of NASA stuff. So I think if you give me a reference, you should not cherry pick one little key point of the page and reject everything else. I think is the most honest approach. If you give me a reference, you got to take all of it from the reference point, if you understand what I mean.
That's
Okay, so you're presented.
Yeah, so if you guys are sitting out there and you didn't just say, "What the hell?" then you're wrong. So be patient with me. I'm going to try to get through these series of sentence fragments. So, Jose Retard, I think it may be a week ago or so, 4 or 5 days, I did a little special nighttime and I Google all the 10 references that you get. You've been given the 10 you presented today, doing the definition just for the hell of it, just for fun, because if you give me a reference, I gonna research what that reference, what the whole page university is gonna give me. So if you accept one definition from the reference, it means everything else must be true. And you should hold to it dear or hold it dear to your heart. And it gave me a lot of astronomy, a lot of shape of the earth, a lot of NASA stuff. So I think if you give me a reference, you should not cherry pick one little key point off the page and reject everything else. I think is the most honest approach. This crayon muncher doesn't know, he's not the only one, it's all of them, doesn't know the difference between a citation and a reference. So let's go over this. From difference between .com, specifically a citation versus reference. A citation is how you quote the source of the ideas within the body of the research paper. References are included at the end of every chapter of a thesis or towards the end of the thesis. On the other hand, citation is included at the places wherever you quote from different authors. The purpose of a reference is only to let the reader of the thesis know the various books from which you have quoted from the list at the end or footnotes. So this could be books or periodicals, but that's the only purpose. To fumble, bumble, and stumble drilling through a reference and mind-numbingly search out some or any topic different than what the actual citation, i.e. quotation, denotes is so fuckwit language cannot fully encapsulate it. It demonstrates unequivocally that, number one, the retard has never attended university, constructed a research paper, or reviewed scientific literature ever. But number two, brings into serious question if they ever passed junior high school. Psst, you just unwittingly tattooed pretender clown retard on your forehead forever. Following the logic from Retardia, these citations are cherry-picked, and both papers should be dismissed and the authors charged, indicted with academic fraud. We got Yunhoo Kim, a delayed choice quantum eraser, 10 violations, and Zhao Sang Ma, quantum eraser with a causally disconnected choice, with 52 violations of cherry picking. Let's take a look at this. What you do is you go to the end of the research study. And by the way, you guys should stop in here and review this experiment. It'll put hair on your chest. So let's go down to the end, usually where the references are. You see all these over here? These are the references for the paper above. There are 52 references here, right? According to Knucklehead Jose, they're all cherry picked because he doesn't know what cherry pick is. None of them do. Clowns. It also indicts every single encyclopedia and dictionary ever written. It also justifies my wife rejecting the chicken marsala recipe I gave her because in the very same recipe book it has chicken pot pie, which I hate. If you haven't caught on to the little snooky game they got going on here, here's the concept. But in the very same reference you cited from, about boll weevils, it says that astronomy is science. Well, did I cite it? What did I cite? Did I cite astronomy as science, or did I cite something with boll weevils? If I didn't cite anything about astronomy as science, then I'm not responsible for it. Duh. So I post a citation discussing the crucial importance of the bond force constants in the water dimer. However, if within the very same reference, even if it's the next sentence, it goes on about how the bond force constants in the water dimers are created by invisible three-toed gnomes behind the Crab Nebula, throwing pixie dust in a black hole, and how they are the cause for invisible three-toed gnome calcium oxalate stones. That fact, number one, doesn't refute, render null, impugn my citation, or have any impact on it whatso friggin' ever. Number two, doesn't denote that I believe that invisible three-toed gnomes exist or have kidney stones. Number three, doesn't obligate me to explain or justify in any way, shape, or form invisible three-toed gnomes, crab nebulas, black holes, or calcium oxalate stones. And number four, shows unequivocally that your clumsy daft Muppet appeal is a booger-eating retard, incoherent, belly-laughing red herring fallacy from the Black Lagoon, at best. In other words, Mr. Magoo, I'm only responsible for the citation and the substance therein. Duh. Please report to fifth grade 2 weeks early next year. It's so shocking that I would even have to go over this. Right? Again, by the mere fact that I had to explain this, demonstrably reveals not only that this booger-eating psychopath Jose never reviewed scientific literature ever, but brings into serious question if and how he ever passed junior high school. Let's do a couple examples. P.S. The father of the second law of thermodynamics is Lord Kelvin. But Lord Kelvin also said X-rays will prove to be a hoax and radio has no future. So according to Jose's claim above, nobody can cite the second law of thermodynamics unless they think X-rays and radios are bunk. Clown. And this is absolutely priceless. I took this from above. Jose retard. If you accept one definition from the reference, it means everything else must be true. You should hold it dear to your heart. I mean, I don't know. Just hammer away at the C4 fire, clown. This is tantamount. Listen to this. A prosecutor obtains the handwritten diary from a serial killer detailing how he murdered his last 10 victims. On page 3, 6, and 9, the killer states, I am innocent. According to Jose Retard, the judge is perfectly justified in stopping the prosecutor from continuing his examination on the basis of cherry picking. Clearly, the defendant is innocent because the prosecutor should believe everything that has come from the same source in the same document and hold it close to his heart. In conclusion, perhaps you should get on your knees and pray ceaselessly to the rock, pond, whatever, and give thanks for the autonomic nervous system, clown, because if you had to think to breathe, you'd be in big trouble. Unbelievable that I would even have to talk about it. I appreciate it, though. Thanks a lot. Please continue making videos with this clown nonsense.
He's got the butt of it, but Jose's one of a string of people that level the claim of cherry picking specifically at your door. It happens almost daily.
No, it's just not at my door. They do it. It's like cherry picking. As soon as they're put up against the woodshed, cherry picking. They think that that's like an argument, right? Now you have to support it. Most don't even know what it is. So it's. I just shake my head at these people, man. They think that they're clever. I think that they think they're clever, but they're abject morons. Anyone that watches or listens to these that has graduated high school recently or has attended university in any capacity must be shaking their head, laughing their full heads off at these clowns. They gotta be. That's how stupid this is.
Right, so the next time.
Yeah, that's it for Jose. We don't need, we actually didn't need to do anything with him. Just let him speak. But I promised him that I'd square him up. So there you go, Jose. Take that, you crayon munching clown. So the next one is Sean Hufford, right? This is classic. Go ahead and play at 127.56 and stop at 128.15.
Have you ever tried doing this?
Yeah, I have, and I accept and I agree with you that there is citations to the contrary. But look at the quality of the citations that they're coming from in that context.
Sciencefair.math.iit.edu. Science is, or time is always the independent variable.
So if time's always the independent variable, and you can only have one independent variable in a scientific experiment.
Sorry, I went over a little bit.
That's okay.
I'll just get you back up.
So,
1 second.
Okay.
Okay, you're up.
So Sean Hufford actually citing something, that's a first, not only for Sean, but for any of those crayon munchers, cites this. Time is always the independent variable. Priceless, man, priceless. You no depth, mindless parroting retard. Number one, did you think you were done? The argument has just begun, clown show. You now have to support, i.e., cowbell, that which you've cited with demonstration. Best wishes. It's coming up in the face of this. Get ready. Viable independent variables must satisfy 3 criterion. Number 1, it's your presumed cause. Number 2, the researcher must be able to vary and manipulate it. And number 3, the independent variable must demonstrably exist before you use it in an experiment. All 3 criterion must be satisfied, not just one. So let's take a few with time. Height, depth, width, length, distances, and time are not viable independent variables. I don't care who says it. Number 1, the submarine was crushed at a depth of 10,000 feet. Did depth cause the sub to implode, or was it pressure? Number 2, the gentleman was so obese he measured 1 meter wide. Did width cause obesity, or was it laziness combined with excessive caloric intake? Number 3, over the course of the night, the sun suddenly appeared above the horizon. Did time cause the sun to appear above the horizon? Does time cause the difference of scores between the first and third quarters? Did time cause the dough to rise? Does time cause the new roof to appear? Does time cause gravity? Or can we just think of it as time?
Never gets old.
Did time cause the universe to poof itself into existence from pre-existence? See how silly these are? You silly wabbit. Tricks are for retards. And by the way, crayon muncher, from the University of Texas, there can only be one independent variable and one dependent variable in an experiment. Everything else can impact the experiment must be kept constant or controlled. These are synonymous. We'll get to that in a little while. These are known as controls. So, crayon muncher, if time is always the independent variable, then every single effect in the history of the world is caused by time. No need to employ the scientific method experiment ever. Why? Because we already know the cause. Well, what caused your period? Time. Oh, what caused the grass to grow? Time. Clown show. All you could, and This is the best part. I want to see somebody do this. Can you tell us how you vary and manipulate time, por favor? What do? Stop your watch. Time is merely the conceptual medium in which all events in what we call the universe take place. That's all it is. You can't physically vary and manipulate concepts, you retard. Time is always a constant, i.e., control variable. Duh. That's all for that one, man.
Yeah, that one's not new either, really, is it? I've heard time being used. I've heard all the other lists as well. Just for the sake of the audience, because, you know, it's been a while since we've done this show, and I know the audience. Can you just ask me a couple of those questions that you phrased with, is time the cause of the scores between the first and... Can you just ask me a couple of those?
Yeah, I got one for you. Does time cause the new roof to appear?
No. People building it.
Does time cause gravity?
No.
If it doesn't cause gravity, can we just think that it causes gravity?
Yeah, we can think of it as being galloping unicorns if we want to. We can think of a lot of things.
It's the same thing. It's, you know, with width or depth, right? It's the same scenario.
Or location.
Or location, exactly. Or any distance. It doesn't cause anything, right? This cause and effect thing is going to become very important here over the next few minutes.
Okie doke, right. Is the next one the short one?
Yeah, it's a quick turnaround. Play at 1:45 and stop at 1:45:05.
Fortunately, there'll be a couple of seconds before.
Literally, astrology says, okay, Mars is over by that star, so this is going to happen in your life.
Yeah, I get it. So explain.
Astronomy is an observational science. It's not trying to apply a cause and effect. It's
Pretty sure that was where you wanted me to stop.
How'd you guess?
Okay, you're up again.
Yeah, so Sean, I love this, by the way. Astronomy is an observational science. It's not trying to apply a cause and effect. Number one, this is just merely a clumsy equivocation fallacy with the term observational. It's really stupid. We're going to deal with that later. Number two, Shawnee, no causi and effecti, no sciencey. Okay? Scientific hypothesis. California Institute of Technology. Oh, from nature.com, by the way. California Institute of Technology physicist Sean Carroll arguing in the edge that hypotheses aren't simply useful tools in some potentially outmoded vision of science. They're the whole point. So, what's a scientific hypothesis? We got to get to the point, the whole point. Let's figure out what it is. Let's see if it has any contradictions with your not cause and effect up here. So, Lowell C., becoming a successful scientist, Cambridge University. A scientific hypothesis is based on what? Cause and effect reasoning. A scientific hypothesis does not merely state X and Y may be related, but explains why they are related. From Drexel University, the scientific method is hypothesis-driven. One makes an educated guess to explain a cause and effect relationship. From Anne-Marie Helmestein, from .co, PhD Biomedical Sciences, a hypothesis is an educated guess based on observation. It's a prediction of cause and effect. You see the problem? So since hypotheses are the whole point in science, and hypotheses are solely based on cause and effect relationships, then anything that is not cause and effect is not friggin' science, Sean! Duh! Please report to 5th grade 2 weeks early next year. We can stop there.
This is what it's all about. You think after, 6 to 8, maybe even 12 months of shows talking about science and what it is, and specifically what it isn't, that they'd get that it's specifically about cause and effect. We still have people coming on that declare we don't need a cause. It happened only yesterday.
I can't. Do you want me to comment on that? I mean, I'm speechless. I mean, these people are pretender clowns. They just come walking in here after munching on their crayons. They haven't any education. Most couldn't tell you the difference between a Bunsen burner and a beach ball. And listen, like I said, I hate the stereotype, but I've been out here for over 3.5 years. I have yet to meet a single Baltard, and a lot of flat earthers, by the way, that could pass 5th grade general science.
Fair enough. It's like you say, it's hard to know what to say to this, isn't it? Because you think they'd learn from the George Musa incident. So he's discussing the validity and saying that they don't know the cause of gravity. And obviously we rejoice and play it over and over again and say what you've just said here. No causey, no sciencey. Great, thanks, George. You'd think they'd learn their lesson, but no, of course not.
No, they don't, because they have no idea what they're doing or what they're saying. They don't know the ramification of what they're saying. It's clear. This is like, I'll tell you what this is like. This is like shooting hippos in a fishbowl. That's what it's like. For me, it is. So it's a lot of fun. It takes some time putting it together, but this is preposterous, ludicrous absurdity. I hope everyone's seeing that. It's going to get better.
There's more.
Oh, yeah. So, play from 145.43 and stop at 146.11.
I will have a few more seconds, unfortunately.
And you're in the vast minority.
That's because on your side, none of you
because you're smarter than every other scientist that's ever been.
Because you're trying to apply the rules of experimental science with observational science. They are not the same thing.
I know. One of them.
So why are you comparing them as the same thing?
I'm not. I'm contrasting them.
You're saying astronomy is pseudoscience because it doesn't follow the experimental scientific method.
Correct.
It's not an experimental science. It's observational.
It's not real science.
It's not trying to find causes and effects. It's literally just making observations and measurements. That's all.
Okay.
So, Sean, because you're trying to apply the rules of experimental science with observational science, they're not the same thing. So, you see what he's doing here? He's playing a little equivocation game, right? With observational science. So, like I said, it's a clumsy equivocation fallacy by using an adjective in front of the term science, right? Which is code for hypothesis-less and experiment-less science. That's the juxtaposition that he's putting forward here, right? Number 2, experimental science is painfully redundant. It's a tautology, like dark nights, chromatic rainbows, vertical drop, and true facts. Whenever science is uttered, Crayon Muncher, experiment is immediately invoked, and vice versa. There's just science, natural. Now, we're not talking about computer science here, right? We're talking about natural science, physics, which must follow the scientific method, or it's not science. Sean, this is priceless. Astronomy is what they're talking about here. It's not an experimental science. Again, a tautology, right? Retard, no experimenty, no sciencey. From the University of Rochester Physics Labs. Listen to this closely. The scientific method distinguishes science from other forms of explanation because of its requirement of systematic experimentation. Its requirement, go look up that word and what it means. For the scientific method is what? systematic experimentation. It distinguishes science from everything else. So, without experimentation, science is just like everything else. There's no distinction to it. You can't discern it from anything else, from badminton, from chicken noodle soup. So, Mr. Magoo, fucktard Sean, how in the world can you have science without experiment? Please tell us. Oh, I'll tell you what, you better turn away because this is going to be bad. You might as well just shut this off. I'm going to get medieval on your dumbass. From Luar's Computational Chemistry, Introduction to the Theory and Application of Molecular and Quantum Mechanics. The final arbiter of truth in science is experiment. From the Chair of Physics at Yale, Professor Shankar. The only way things change in physics is experiments. Everything is based on experiment. That's the only way we change our mind. From Professor Shankar again, the best way not to worry about your old theories is to not do any experiments. Then you can go home. That's all you need to do, just go home. No sense in going, it's just chicken soup. From, and this is the killer. I love this for you. From Richard Feynman. If it doesn't agree with experiment, crayon muncher in brackets, it's wrong. And that simple statement is the key to science. So, if you don't have this, you don't have this. From Max Planck. Experiment is the only means of knowledge at our disposal. Everything else is poetry, imagination, chicken soup. From the University of Rochester Physics Labs again. The scientific method requires that a hypothesis be ruled out or modified if its predictions are clearly and repeatedly incompatible with what? Experimental tests. Further, no matter how elegant a theory is, its predictions must agree with what? Experimental results. If we are to believe that it is a valid description of nature, in physics, as in every experimental science, experiment is supreme. And experimental verification is what? Of hypothetical predictions is what? Absolutely necessary. You hear that sound, Mr. Magoo fucktard Sean? That's your second grade science acumen circling the drain at light friggin' speed. Unbelievable. That we could stop it right there.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's not a handful and a substantial number of people that don't appreciate that this terminology is this powerful terminology, science, is useful for people who are pretending. And therefore, because those people who are pretending write down that they are science and that they don't need experiments, people assume that they're correct, even though it's plainly obvious from the people who you've just detailed. And I've got to admit, Feynman's my favourite as well. Jeranism's used him quite a few times in the actual clip. Can you repeat that from Feynman, if you would?
Sure. He's just echoing what everyone else says. Everyone knows this who's been in the discipline for like 3 seconds. If it doesn't agree with experiment, it's wrong. And that simple statement is the key to science. Key! If you don't have the key, you're not getting in. In other words, I'm sure these clowns will probably attempt to define key in a different way or something, or two, right? Idiots.
Well, I'm pretty sure they'll just say that using a Feynman quote specifically about experimentation is cherry picking. Or,
oh my God.
Or add the word observational to science and say, well, you weren't talking about observational science now, were you?
The first, yeah, I know. The first step of the scientific method, clown shows, is what? Observe a phenomenon. That's the first step of the scientific method. Not the middle step, not the last step. It is part of the scientific method. Observe a phenomenon. It's the first step. So you got to have it. because you can't get the hypothesis without observing a phenomenon first. It gives you your dependent variable. So I don't know what you mean by observational science. What does that mean? If you're not blind, then you're an observational scientist? Is that what you clowns are going for here?
I'm going to answer, even though it's rhetorical. I'm going to answer. So there's a specific discipline, again, utilized by pretender clowns who don't have what we are detailing. They don't have experimentation based on a hypothesis, and that specific discipline is astronomy. So when they talk about what was it? Visual science, observational science. What they're talking about is the declaration of science by astrophysicists. They cannot vary and manipulate what they observe, the phenomena of the stars. So they declare that they're science when they don't have experiments. But yet they're telling you what your world is. It's the most critical part of this debate.
Yeah, it's paleontology, anthropology, archaeology, geology, evolutionary biology, theoretical physics, astronomy, astrophysics, and cosmology. They're all pretender clown religious fruitcakes, right? They just observe and declare. Observe and declare. And since they got science back there in the hopper, well, we're science, then what they declare is science. Are you kidding me? You got to be kidding me, people. You can't see through this? Take the cognitive dissonance mud that's baked over your eyes, right, and your ears. I mean, an incoherent second grader can expose these people. The fluoride must be strong with you, young Skywalkers.
But it is a deception, so ultimately speaking, the people who claim to be science, there's going to be citations abundant from these people. Often, we're using them as hostile sources, but they're going to be in abundant. It doesn't mean that they're not deceiving you, and that's why people get labelled wiki-parroting pretender clowns by Quantum Eraser. Because that's what we're dealing with, people who have no discernment about the actual information that they're reading, and don't recognise an overt lie by a pretender clown. I'm science. So immediately you go, oh, well, what he's saying must be true then.
Yeah. See, another thing that's problematic, that's just been a recent phenomena is, and we touched on it above with Clown Show Sean, with it, they think that just providing citation when they do, because it's rare, that's good enough. That's it. That's the end of the argument. No, pretender clowns. No, the argument has just begun. You now have to support. If the person that made the citation, if that person didn't actually support what he just said, if you cite it, you're responsible for it. You now have to go out and search out support for what he just said, because I don't care who it comes from. It's a baseless assertion fallacy unless you can support it. I hope that's clear to people.
Or repeat it 5 times while you're refuting the baseless assertion. If you can paraphrase your own baseless assertion 4 more times over the top of the rebuttal, then that's pretty much a win.
Right. You have a lot of people doing that now. Even flat earthers are starting to do that, right?
I don't get it. I understand the tactic, but simply reasserting your position 5 to 500 times in the face of a rebuttal isn't going to be a win. It doesn't work like that. And I have to agree with you. I'm lazy, so I often don't go and get citations. I prefer to take the actual, the path that you're describing in terms of them being support. In other words, you make the argument, you make the case, and you may require a citation to support your case. Once it's cited, as John puts it, you're responsible for it. It's part of your argument. It's not that the entire reference suddenly backs your argument, Jose. You're just citing one specific thing that backs your specific argument. Now, like I say, I'm lazy. I'd just rather make the argument and not cite anything. But that's just me. But what the point is that just a citation isn't an argument. It doesn't stand in isolation to prove your point. You have to make your case.
Exactly. You got it. Yep.
Okay, should we move on? There's a couple more clips to go, I believe.
Yeah, it's just one, I think. Hold on a second. Let me check. I think it's just one. I think we could get through one. It doesn't matter. Let's get to it. Let me find it.
Got 20.
It is. Go ahead.
209.56.
Yeah, this is Mr. Magoo. I mean McToon. So play at 209.56. Stop at 210.07.
Will reject the null depending on what you've done. So you will prove that either the hypothesis was proven or the null was proven, but you will prove one of them, and you will dismiss.
I'm sorry, that's a little bit of word games. I will not accept that science proves things because scientists will stand up all day long and say, no, I'm sorry, we don't prove things.
All right.
Okay, wrapping it up. Go ahead.
So scientists will stand up all day long. You sure they're scientists, Crayon Muncher? You mean pseudoscientists will stand up all day long? This is a train wreck. McToon, Mr. Magoo, I'm sorry, that's a little bit of word games. I will not accept science proves things because scientists will stand up all day long and say, no, I'm sorry, we don't prove things. Oh, really, Pretender Clown Muppet? From Krista McClellan, The Nature of Science and the Scientific Method. Experiment. Once the hypothesis has been established, it is time to test it. The process of experimentation is what sets science apart from other disciplines. Boy, we heard that above, didn't we? This process of experimentation is what sets science apart from other disciplines, and it leads to discoveries every day. An experiment is designed to prove or disprove the hypothesis. If your prediction is correct, you will not be able to reject the hypothesis. Duh! From Dr. Craig Venter, the grand poobah of geneticists, the geneticist of geneticists. You know, there's some things we can do in science in terms of proving certain things in life we discover. So I don't know what scientist you're talking about, clown show, but you just got pummeled. Let's pile on. Proof equals evidence. From Merriam-Webster, evidence, an outward sign, indication. B, something that furnishes proof. From Oxford dictionaries, proof, evidence, or argument establishing a fact or truth of a statement. From Collins Dictionary, prove, number one, the first one, test by experiment. Do you get it now? Proof synonyms. Confirmation, evidence, validation. From the University of Rochester Physics Labs again, a scientific theory represents a hypothesis or a group of related hypotheses which has been confirmed through repeated experimental tests. See, confirmed, that means prove. From your alma mater wiki, an experiment is a procedure carried out to support, refute, or validate a hypothesis. Validation. Proof. See it? Ergo, experiments prove or disprove hypotheses. This is basic fundamental stuff. Okay, now here's a good example. Here comes the cowbell. Scientists using the scientific method have proven, number one, water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius at sea level. That is 1 atmosphere of pressure. 101.325 kilopascals or 14.7 psi. Number two, combustion is a result of oxidation reactions. Number three, information is only caused by intelligent agency. Number four, lack of insulin with type 1 diabetes patients results in ketoacidosis. That's DKA. Number 5, the lack of vitamin C intake in humans results in scurvy. Number 6, knowledge or the existence of the which path information collapses the wave function. Number 7, the rapid motion and collision of molecules with the walls of the container causes gas pressure. Number 8, magnetism is caused by the motion of electric charge. Number 9, the Coriolis force is caused by 2 differing frames of reference, one rotating coordinate system, non-inertial, and one rotating coordinate system, inertial. Number 10, gluconeogenesis results in the production of glucose from specific non-carbohydrate precursors. I could go on for months. These are absolutely true, proven, inviolable, never to be falsified. Listening to these clinical level Dunning-Kruger retards is like listening to Elmer Fudd giving the keynote address at a neurosurgery convention. What these people are, I'm telling you, this is you, right? We all know it. Most flat earthers know it. When you open up your mouths, this is you. This is what we see. I know this is what I see. Every single time. Not only you three, all your knucklehead cohorts. You're all the same. Basically, you have all the same train wreck arguments from 2015, right? Just whistling past the grave road. Oh, the rotation of the earth, the rotation, it's not spinning that fast. You know, typical stuff like that. This is what I see. Seriously. Thanks for your ear. Have a nice day.
Thanks. Excellent presentation. Nice dissection, as always.
You're welcome.
Can I get one of your catchphrases? It's a new one. I've not heard it before. Did you say carry on pounding the C4 to put out the fire?
No, yeah, it's really funny. It's a really good visual. Technically, it might not be correct, but anyone who tries it, it's a train wreck. So C4 is plastic explosive, and what you need to set it off is pressure and temperature, both. It won't go off with just one. I mean, you could burn this stuff; it ain't going to go off. On the other hand, you could pound on it. You could squeeze it to death. It's not going to go off. But if you combine both, look out, brother. So pounding the C4 fire, I just get a visual of just a crayon muncher, finding some C4 laying around and taking a hammer and say, ooh, start pounding away at it. So yeah, it's the concept, man. It just kills me.
Yeah. There was a serious point, actually. I should have said this before, which is to say that, in amongst the people who are claiming to be science, that is the main point here, which is that there's going to be, I said it already, there's going to be citations that you can go and find, but they've been produced by the pseudoscientists, and that's really where the battle lines are being drawn. I mean, I watched an Owen Benjamin clip from a way back, and he's talking about NASA even before he came to this subject, and he's talking about science and saying how it's big bad science. And you're like, no, not at all. Our war is not with science, it's with pseudoscientists claiming to be science. Science is on our side. It's just a method. It's not a buddy. I'm not putting my arm around science going, I'm glad you're here. No, it's just a method. It's not to be reified, and that's what these people have done. They've reified it into a thing, the body of science, the scientific consensus. That's what they've turned a method into, a method with empiricism. That's why they've hijacked it. So they've said, great, as soon as somebody understands in 5th grade that when we apply this method, we prove something, that's really useful. If I want to assert something I've got no proof for, I just say that magic word science, I point at a light in the sky and declare what the convection currents are doing on it. Now that's science, ladies and gentlemen. No, it's not. That's pseudoscience. Those are the people that we have an issue with, not science, not the method of empiricism that gives you a cause and effect relationship. That's very useful. It's driven technological advancements, but they're not science either, they're technology. But yet we get told about these little devices men have put together and how they're science. No. Anybody claiming that they are pseudoscientists. They don't establish a cause with this man-made device. It may be utilised in an experiment, but that doesn't make it the phenomena. These are all the practices of pseudoscientists, not scientists. So that's what we're up against when these pretender clowns, the charlatans who declare science, have ensnared us in nonsense, telling us what our world is based on pseudoscience practices, declaration, observational science. Wow, you might as well just say pseudoscience, Sean, because that's what you're talking about, isn't it now? Something that they haven't established cause. They've just made an observation and then declared that that's science, therefore proven. And when we pull it apart and say, no, science actually does prove things through systematic experimentation, the main key event in science, once we show them that, you know what they say? Oh, no, science doesn't actually prove anything. It just gives you a jolly good indication of something that's occurred. And it might be changed at a later date. Again, the same pseudoscientists. They're the people that are going to tell you that science is going to change. No, it won't. The whole point of doing it is to give you an empirical result. But no, if they need to change their just so story later down the line, they're absolutely going to grease the skids of their just so story by prefacing science and saying it doesn't prove things. If it doesn't prove things, what the hell is the point of doing it? Well, there is a point. It establishes cause.
I'm speechless. I couldn't have said that any better myself. Exactly. Precisely.
So leave the scientists alone. The real ones, just let them get on with establishing cause and effect, and go after Neil deGrasse Tyson and say, what's your independent variable when you declare this, that and the other about a light in the sky?
He ain't going to know what it is. He will not know what an independent variable is. I bet the farm on it.
Look at the waistcoat. Look at the waistcoat. Look into my eyes. Yeah, these people are pretender clowns. They're the ones we've got a war on. And when people say, oh, if we attack science, again, reifying this method, then the whole of society would crumble. No. The real scientists would still carry on. They'd still be establishing cause and effect based on a hypothesis. They'd still be supposing what they think causes an effect that they're investigating and trying to establish it through systematic experimentation. They're not going to lose their jobs. Scientific discovery will not halt, but there'll be a lot of pretender clowns out on the street in nice shiny waistcoats.
I don't know, Guy, if because that's a big part of academia and the professional world. All those listen to those disciplines now. You got paleontology, anthropology, archaeology, geology, evolutionary biology, theoretical physics, astronomy, cosmology, and astrophysics. That is a healthy chunk, right? That if it's exposed, it won't be. People are too indoctrinated. But if it were to be exposed, all of academia, it would implode in on itself. Even though there's valid scientists, right? You know, in quantum mechanics, in genetics, in biochemistry, in chemistry, they'd be grandfathered and sucked in. Universities would just implode, man. And the public trust of those universities and institutions, oh brother, it would be bad. It would be pretty bad. I'm just speculating here, but I see no way out.
I can cope with Ross Geller from Friends being out on his ear.
Yeah, right. I don't know, in the United States, man. Oh boy, look out! Somebody's getting their ass kicked. That's all I know.
Okay, I'm happy to wrap it up here. If we're coming up on the hour mark, which is about how long I was hoping it would be. Have you got anything to add? If not, I'll round out and thank the audience.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
A pleasure. First and foremost, a massive, huge, enormous thank you to Quantum Eraser for making this presentation possible. Also, of course, a massive thank you to all of you in the live audience for tuning in, hopefully sharing the show. If you need to keep yourself occupied after this debate is over, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Da-da-dun, da-da-dun. I'm still recording.
Oh, you are? Yeah,
just in case. I often end the recording and then we'll have a little chit-chat afterwards, and I think, oh, God, I wish I hadn't just, automatically ended the recording, because you've normally got, afterthoughts, and the stress is off when the live show ends.
There was no stress during the live show.
I know. Metaphorically speaking, the stress.
Yeah, I got you.
No, good show.
Go ahead.
I was just saying I was pleased with that, very pleased with that.
Yeah, it was short and concise, to the point. I mean, there wasn't too many things that we had to deal with. Their statements were clear, concise, and to the point. Even though they were retarded, they were concise.
What, Jose's? That was the... how did you ever transcribe that sentence?
I'll tell you what, dude. I sat here. Somebody gave me an idea. Betty gave me the idea to go ahead and go into the transcript and copy it. But it was so long, if you try to copy the transcript, you got to copy the times with it. After I did that, I said, I'm just writing it out. The heck with this. But it was really difficult, because I had... in the transcript, they don't pick up on all the words either. They think you might have said something that you haven't said. So I had to go through there like 20 times to make sure that all the words he said were right. I probably missed a couple still. It's just a pain in the ass to go through.
But by the same token, I mean...
Jose, that statement... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm not going to besmirch him for having English as a second language. That's not the issue. It's saying that you've got to hold the entire reference close to your heart. It's like, well, he knows what he's saying. It's not that the language is that disjointed for him. He knows what he means when he said that, right?
I don't know. I think he's just parroting what other people have told him. I've heard this before. Not the same thing, but the concept of it. So all these guys, they hear it. And I don't know if Pontiff Maximus of Retardia, George. Oh, by the way, I heard that he's excommunicated, by the way.
Yeah, I did see that. So Jose released a little short, off the back of his all welcome policy, saying George is a scumbag and never welcome back here again.
Yeah. Well, he finally realized it. But back to the point. They all think this. Listen, let me tell you something. You have to know this, right? Citation, how to construct a works cited page, bibliography, do footnotes, depending on what type of citation style that your professor wants. It all depends, regardless of that. You have to. It's so stupid. It's hard to put it into words. I'm trying to think of a case like a professor pulling up your citation and bringing you in the office from another part of the reference. It's retarded.
Well, you summarized it already. He's not university educated, so I mean, neither am I. But I still understand this stuff. My wife's doing it at the moment, actually, for a course she's on. But not everybody knows that, so I don't know if that's a bit unfair.
No. You need to know this to get out of, not to get out of, you need to know this to pass certain courses in high school.
Oh, fair enough. Maybe that is why I know then. Maybe it's not.
I mean, at university, you're in university. There's no excuse if you just don't know this. Like it's prima facie. It's like breathing. This isn't even a topic. It's not even up for discussion. It's one of those things. Like I said, it's like breathing. Wouldn't
it be great though if you were that professor and you just pick up? You don't even have to read each of the submissions. Just write cherry picking on it.
You got it exactly. Exactly, because you haven't proven that you haven't cherry picked. Anyway, any citation has the concept of course, it's cherry picked. You're taking something out of a larger volume of words. That, of course, you're picking it out of there. So cherry pick, right?
Well, when Anthony summarized it in a similar way, he was like, "Yeah, that's the whole point." And he was describing it in legal terms. It's like cherry picking the right sections to highlight is the whole essence of being in a legal argument.
Right, but that's not what cherry picking is. I'm not defining it here because these crayon munchers, I'm not giving them the definition. I'm making them look it up. We'll talk about it afterwards when we go offline.
Oh, right, okay. So this is something that you're actually waiting for somebody to actually look up what cherry picking is and realise where they're wrong.
Yep, exactly.
Fair enough. Yeah, we'll talk about that off air.
They won't do it. Or they'll cherry pick the cherry pick definition.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so bad, man. It's so bad out there. In fact, I got to keep from watching videos because I'll have to dissect them and I got a bad habit of doing that. And it's just overwhelming work. Right? I have all the answers, but to format it, I'd rather eat paint chips.
I'm getting a bit like that with the comments, and I can't deny that I see aspects of, I don't know how long ago it's been since I first started seeing your comments appearing in my videos, but they were formatted in a very particular way. And at the time I didn't know why. Now, I'm not cross-referencing your responses to people. I'm just typing freehand. So I go into YouTube Studio and it brings up comments for everything, every single thing, and I can flick between the 3 channels and go to comments for all of them. So it's a very effective way of going through. But what I'll just sit and it's just a freehand reply. And yesterday I noticed that my reply, once I'd finished, looked a bit like your replies that I was reading from a year ago. And the penny finally dropped. I'm like, now I get it. It's like you want to actually address every aspect of their nonsense, undo their nonsense, and then give them the truth with a few citations. That bit I'm a bit lax on, I'll be honest. But ultimately, the formatting style, I'm like, yeah, I get it. But it takes quite a considerable amount of time to actually do that.
Sure it does. Yep. Yeah, you got it because you want to systematically. I'm just built that way. I got to systematically, okay, claim, support, right? Next, claim, support. That it's just inbuilt in me. I just have to do it, and that's how I see it. That's how I listen to people, right? And of course, when you're listening to Baltards, you're not getting any support. You're getting the paraphrase. You called it out. You really did, because that's exactly what everyone is doing. They're just paraphrasing their argument, but they're not giving any support.
Yeah, I'm getting tired of it, because the most recent was Dawn. He did it today. So he's a one-string guitar anyway, but he's just repeating the same crap over the top, not even paraphrasing it, while we're trying to expand and, explain the answer to his questions or where he's gone wrong. I can't remember the exact situation, but what I do remember is Dawn over the top of me 2 or 3 times with the same words I've already heard, because you can still pretty much make out what he's saying even though you're mid-sentence, and he's just saying the same crap over and over again. But it seems like the tactics are getting more and more base in terms of their ability to actually hold an argument. In other words, I know this annoys Anthony, but when the argument's cut off at the knees immediately, the only place to go for the panel is to give a long, drawn-out explanation and force a fundy to understand. So we had 10th Man this morning talking about the They Live glasses, and you're trying to say about putting glasses on people, and it's like, no, he's just trying to say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But
I heard that, yep.
But once you've cut the argument off at the legs, which is fairly efficiently done on the show now, the only place to go for everyone else is to try and get the person who's made the original claim to actually understand where they've gone wrong. So they try and explain to Dawn where he's gone wrong in his assertion. Oh, that was it. It was gas pressure without a container. So right the hand gets him to concede that you can assume the necessary antecedent of a container for water if you're on a boat trip. And at that point, once you've got the concession, it's like, well, it's game over. But it carries on, you know, it kind of dragged out a little bit longer, and eventually I'm stepping in going, look, you've already conceded, you've lost this argument, and you've been taken through the steps of understanding for your own comprehension. So like, great, you know, it's a useful tool for the audience and all, but ultimately speaking at this point, you should be, if the penny isn't dropping, it's ultimately the case that he's bracing against it. And that's why they talk over the top of it, because they also hear the first few words and have got the cognitive processing power to understand the implications, enough so that they realise that it must be talked over. So a lot of these seemingly stupid people, because of the way they react and brace against it, aren't actually that stupid. Most of them are just regular Joes, the same as me. But because they hear, I'm going to be having a tough time against this, they start to talk.
You're exactly right. They talk immediately. Just nonsense to get over the top. Yeah, it's a really childish tactic. Everyone sees it.
Well, it's the equivalent of la 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 with your fingers in your ears, right?
Yep. I get frustrated by it and I get angry real quick because I lack patience. I have failings myself. That just drives me absolutely insane, especially with simple topics like that, like the gas pressure in the container. It's so simple. Like I said, an incoherent second grader knows. You know, remember I brought in Ryan pumping up his bicycle tire. It's just that simple. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows. Right. Go ahead.
I was going to say Dawn's quite useful in that regard because he's listening a lot to all of the arguments. You know, he's actually quite good at just pushing out the essence of the argument in quite a concise way. Yes, it's nonsense, and I appreciate that, but he's actually just giving you the essence of what their rebuttal is or their argument is, and you can unpick it to the point where an audience will recognise how crap the argument actually is, you know, where it falls flat on its face. But for me, that's useful. You know, Dawn's a useful tool to show the blatant shortcomings of the argument, and the reason I bring it up is because of the the no drop thing. So today it was really concisely summarised because Dawn was there.
Right, the no drop. Yeah, I have yet to listen to that. But on the other hand, too, is what they do after they get their arguments, they paraphrase, then they hand wave dismiss or arguments. Right.
Yeah, that was it with the gas pressure. So when that was something else I was going to skirt on. So Dawn's saying you sometimes need the antecedent, and that's yeah. But that's how obviously in his mind that's the way to sort of right the wrong or square the circle. Just say it's not always required. I accept that, you know, there's an antecedent sometimes needed. You're like, ugh. that is where you think, thicko, you haven't understood the meaning of antecedent then.
He forgot the qualifier. It's not only the antecedent, it's the necessary antecedent. That's right. That's what would have halted it.
Right.
Yeah. And I heard him say, I don't know if it was him or it was somebody else. They were talking about that entropy is or the scale changes things. The laws of thermodynamics are not limited to scale. So that's another weak argument. I mean, there's so many out there.
Or any law of nature is going to be limited by their fundy belief in every respect.
Right, that's what it is. And like I said, I don't think I can't make the call on whether they're stupid or not. I can only tell if somebody's entered the gates of university or not, or past high school. But you don't need those things to be intelligent. Intelligence and education are two different animals. Now, they can be combined, and look out if somebody can combine them. But those things are two different animals. Most people, though, with the common sense of the your common ground squirrel, can evaluate 99% of these arguments and reconcile them quickly. The gas pressure without a container, you don't even need the second law. You just need your basic everyday experience, right? That's what laws are. However, everyone knows this. You can't get around it. And what do? Gas pressure gradients, right? And these flat earthers, most of them step and fetch and bounce or trip all over each other. All they have to do is just say which comes first, gas pressure or gas pressure gradients. It's a red herring fallacy. Get to my actual argument. Right?
Yeah, and we're hearing it less and less though, because there's been hillbilly blue balls showing you gas
yeah,
pressure
the
gradients.
hillbilly blue balls. Yeah, what a clown that guy is, man.
Well, that's a bonus though, because you hear that argument less and less. I know it will rear its head again in 2 months' time when hillbilly blue balls is forgotten about.
Yeah. That cracks me up. The video cracks me up when he uses the butane. What's that canister the butane's in?
That container. I mean, the problem I see going forward in terms of flat Earth, John, speaking candidly, is been quite nicely summarised on this show, which is another reason why I've kept this going. So, Sean goes to a citation that says time is an independent variable. Now, because it's written, it is so in these people's minds. Now, so long as they can find an answer, what's the term? Confirmation bias. So long as they can find confirmation for their fundy belief, jobs are good 'un. But to me, I see that as not being able to recognise, it might not be overt, but deception to some level. Whereas the people who are on our side of the fence just recognise where they're being deceived. So that for me, I'm thinking about this because Spurs has come in and he's just got my cogs to. I actually like Spurs. He's generated a lot of good conversation. So as much as people are criticising his debate tactics, it's like, well, he's stimulated quite a lot of interesting topics and conversation. So shout out to Spurs. But he got me thinking about this. It's like, well, where is there like a difference between our thinking and their thinking, and that puts a wall up? And this is it. It's the point where you can find something that's referenced. It might have even come from a university that backs your story, but ultimately doesn't really either conform with reality or is just flat out incorrect. But they've got a reference for it, and at that point they'll just hand wave dismiss anything because they'd have to recognise that the information that they're holding in their hand is garbage. That, you know, that the source isn't very good, or whatever the reason for the useless information. I mean, I meant to ask you on the show where that reference about time being an independent variable, who actually wrote that down?
It was a technical institute. I'd have to go back and look at it.
But I mean, what to progress those people on behalf of Spurs? What would you do in this instance? Do you, obviously, I know that you've just made the point that you take ownership of that citation. Yes, we're attacking Sean here, but so that there's progress in that regard, do you attack the source like with George Musa? What's the, because that was a real big win from literally going to the source indirectly, although it may be the case with the flat Earth. You know, that was still a big win. So in this instance, could the same thing be applied? So that would make us more ground, wouldn't it? In terms of, I know I'm just repeating myself. I'm thinking on the spot. In terms of the people that just deny that there is a deception. So I'm putting the pieces together between people like Conspiracy Cats with his interview with Haunted House. He's afraid of having been deceived.
Right. I would put trying to discover or elucidate the psychology behind this stuff is the acme of foolishness with human beings, man. Number one. Number two, it would be a case-by-case basis on what the citation is and the contents thereof. The most important thing is, like I said, if you're going to cite something, appropriately cite something, then the person that you've just cited must support what he just said. Now, it doesn't have to be in the same reference. I could care less. But it has to be supported by him. Or else it's just a baseless assertion fallacy. Anyone can write anything, correct? Anybody can do that. But if that person doesn't support what you've cited, because as soon as you cite somebody, that makes you responsible for it. That's it. You're responsible for it. If I handed in a research paper. Professor's going to call me up and he goes, this citation right here. He's going to look at, he's not going to go after the guy with the citation. He's looking at me. You have to reconcile this site. That's never happened to me. It's very difficult, uber difficult to actually cherry pick something. It really is. I mean, and it's a serious charge because it's a type of fraud. So, but back to the main point. If you're going to cite somebody, he has to support it. That is, the person that you're citing has to support it. It has to demonstrate it. Or you do. Period. End of story.
Okay, so something that could be considered a baseless assertion if this person you're citing hasn't actually supported their what could be baseless assertion. I could cite it, but ultimately find my own support for that assertion. So, for example, if I did some research, I did some investigation, and very carefully backed everything that I researched, but I want some weight to the initial assertion. I could seek out an assertion from somebody with status of some significance, use their assertion and cite it and reference it, but ultimately provide the backing personally in terms of my own research data. That would be perfectly acceptable. However, if I make a baseless assertion and cite somebody who hasn't even backed their own baseless assertion, we're just basically both making baseless assertions, then that's
exactly.
that's for nothing. That's not very useful.
Exactly.
But in that instance, you've already said this, but it's not down to us to go after the person who's been cited with a baseless assertion. It's the person who's using it there and then. So you're not responsible for the person, the man who's made that assertion. The person in the argument, making the citation, and ultimately making the argument is the one that you point at.
Exactly. Yeah. The person that is being referenced, he's got his own problems with the editor or whoever's reviewing his document. That's on him. But if you cite it, you are responsible. I mean, as soon as you post that anywhere and it's under your name, you're responsible for it. Makes sense, right?
Well, yeah, you're saying it then. I mean, the guy could be dead for 100 years, so it makes no odds what that person has said, but you've got to back it. So for the people, again, back to Spurs, so for the people who are citing this stuff and it turns out to be wrong, it's like the only thing you can say to them is you've got to have some discernment, and people lie. People make mistakes. Therefore, claims have to be supported. That's why, ding, 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 you need a bit of cowbell with it.
Exactly. You got it exactly right. And every time I hear Spurs now, or hear his name and hear his voice, all I can think of is hug a baller. Hashtag hug a baller. That's what I get from him. He's going after the psychological aspect. I just think it's the acme of foolishness.
It's a good Samaritan.
He is. There's nothing. And listen, I like Spurs too. I just think that he's wasting his time.
Well, when he's feeding us being the lions, metaphorically speaking, when he's throwing men into the lion's den, I'm going to just praise him. Please bring more gummy bears.
Oh, that's right. It was Gummy Bear that he brought the other day. Yeah. He does do that. That's the second or third time he's done that.
Right. Yeah, it is.
He's like bringing them in. It's like he's got a stiff for us. It's like bringing meat into the lion's den.
Maybe he's having these discussions and, coming up against a brick wall, and he's like, well, I know somewhere where we could get some answers together. He puts his arm around them, shoves them in the pit, and then pulls the cage down. But from behind the bars, he's going, it's okay, I'm still supportive. Go on, you get that lion.
It's okay. I got some Band-Aids and Mercure Chrome.
Yeah, I love Spurs. I think he's great. He's a really good guy.
Yeah, I know he is. Spurs been out here for a while. Yep, I knew that. That's an old name.
But now we've given him a few big ups and a few pleasantries. These, all of the people who are out there on the circuit, including Spurs, that are debating the subject, need to start recognising where they're giving massive amounts of ground to the opponents with no good justifiable reason to do so. In other words, to put it mildly, letting them beg the question or operating their argument from within a begging the question fallacy. And if I have one more argument about rockets working in the vacuum of space that's non-existent, or any other argument that starts with the premise that we're on a sphere, it's just gonna drive me insane. It's like, why have you allowed them to beg the question and assume the outcome within this argument? It's just never gonna win. All you're doing is programming the audience more with this argument that we are on a sphere, but they don't recognize it, and they're flat earthers I'm talking about here.
Yeah, exactly. That's enough to. I need to go to counseling once a week for it. It's because of flat earthers. Yep, it happened again today, right? With Pete.
Yeah. Pete.
Because I ran into that
evolution.
video, right?
Evolution.
Yeah. No, it wasn't evolution. I don't know how the heck we even got on that topic. It was the whole thing about revolutions versus speed.
I didn't watch the piece, so I didn't know what you were talking about. You said that somebody had got a stick with a ball on the end with a dot on it, and they're spinning it around.
Listen, let me go try to find this thing, man. I'm going to send it to you.
Okay.
I'll find it one sec. I think it was on Channel Q. Channel Q, YouTube. Oh, I should have hit Channel Q, YouTube. Channel, yeah, that's what I meant. Channel Q, YouTube. I hope this is it. No, it's a little kid. What in the world?
Don't worry.
It was on. It's Channel Q's, her channel, and it's just a couple days ago. It's.
But to summarise the argument again, because I don't fully understand what Pete had conceded.
Oh, it was so stupid. The guy didn't, like I said, I think he called him Schrodinger's cat or something. Wait till you see this guy, man. You're going to be like, oh, shit. Somebody get the paddy wagon. But anyway, this guy formulated the argument. First, he started talking about, Pete, can you tell me about the physiology of the year? What the hell are you, an ENT doc? Right? And then he said, well, Pete, you know, and he pulled out this stick with a ball on it, and he had a felt marker or something, and he put a dot on it. And he goes, where do you think this dot will be in 3 hours after we're done debating? I mean, that's not even an argument. It's not going to be anywhere if you don't move it, Crayon Muncher. But I know what he's trying to say, but he didn't formulate the argument correctly. He's trying to say that the Earth spins slowly, because of the revolutions, and that's why we don't feel it. You know the argument.
Angular speed argument.
Yeah, angular velocity versus tangential speed.
That's the one.
It's just a parlor trick.
Yeah, angular velocity versus tangential speed.
Exactly. Yep. So that sent me off the reservation. Pete, it's not that he succumbed to the argument. I'd have to go back and listen to it. Whatever he did, it pissed me off.
I see.
And that's where most of the trouble, that's where I think flat earth is getting bogged down, is because I told you this about 6 months ago. Flat earthers, right? That shouldn't be out.
It's been open season though. We have gone after them. There hasn't been, occasionally I get props in the comments, which I like for having a go, if you like, of flat earther when he's on the show and spouting bollocks basically, or using the begging the question fallacy from their argument to make his point or her point or whatever. It's been open season since you did that.
Yeah, we do it, but no one else does it. But it doesn't seem to be impacting people, because I keep seeing flat earthers. Listen, like I said before, there's nothing wrong. Listen, you know the earth is flat. You've heard some arguments. You're convinced. Good job. That doesn't mean you get to come out here and listen to your own voice when you haven't done your homework and you're not prepared for the onslaught that's going to come at you, right? You're whether you like it or not, you're representing me by proxy, and you. So I don't like that. I don't like that at all. If you haven't done your homework, well, everyone's going to know immediately, right? I'm going to know within 3 seconds by the first words to come out of your mouth, whether you're a pretender clown, because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about pretender clowns on our side.
That's part of heliocentric life, right? The nihilism is going to run deep in a lot of people, and getting away with being a bit of a bullshitter, which is what this boils down to, because there's plenty of people who aren't pretender clowns, but they'll occasionally just drop something into the mix, you know, a few Nobel Prizes that don't exist or something along those lines, and you go, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's not be bullshitters here. Let's not just make shit up. No, let's have a bit more discipline than that. If you don't know, you don't know. That's acceptable. And obviously, nobody is a guru in this subject. Yeah, there's some obvious arguments that should be adhered to, which reminds me, what we're doing on Ballbusters, is it the crayon-munching globetard arguments and their rebuttals from us?
No, it's gravity.
Gravity again. Oh, great. Well, that's definitely off the moment. I'm more for that than... Yeah, we will get to the crayon-munching arguments and their rebuttals at some stage, though. But yeah, gravity.
Gravity, yeah, because I've been holding on to something for about 6 months, probably longer.
I know. You don't need to say anymore, because this has been recorded still. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes. There's a good reason to cover gravity again, and it's going to be good. Yeah, you've been sat on it too long. Anthony did it with Huygens. Do you remember?
Yes.
He sat on that for ages. There was one that I sat on. What did I sit on for a long time? Aristarchus. Was it Aristarchus?
I don't think so. Was it?
The origin of R.
I can't remember.
The first presupposition with the first presupposition with the shadow on the moon. That's the origin of the presupposition, right?
Say that one more time.
Aristarchus is the origin of the presupposition. You've got a light in the sky that's caused by the spherical Earth.
Yeah, he was the one. Now, if history is correct, I think Aristarchus was there. +1 for Pete.
Well, not really. Well, sort of. Him mentioning Aristarchus was the reason I started looking into it. I can't deny that. It makes me grit my teeth to have to say it, because he couldn't just say that. But on the other hand, the fact that he didn't say it and left it cryptic led me to research it and then sit on it and wait for somebody to come in and actually detail the origin of R. And I think, from memory, it was Kosho who came in and just dropped it in there. And it's like, you know, I can't remember this exact circumstance, but I'm like, yes, finally someone brings it up. Because up until then, we've been asking for R, but nobody had actually come in and used that example. Not once. It hadn't come up.
Right. I think I remember. I know what you're talking about now. Yes.
But my point is that wasn't particularly, I don't know, it was a few months or whatever, and Anthony was the same, maybe a few months. But once you've been sat on a good jape for a while, you want to let it out, right?
Yeah, I had a chance to, but it was a couple of people that I didn't really deem that it was necessary to do that. We could go into other directions, right, to train wreck them. So I just been sitting on it for so long. Let's go ahead, because gravity's it's out there now with the Mooser deal, and everyone's talking about this gravity issue now. So strike when the iron's hot.
I agree, and this isn't anything new. So the bit I trimmed out from Conspiracy Cats, and then something alluding to gravity being nonsense in the title, a toe tag episode. Well, you're covering this exact subject, and the the heart of the essence of what you're communicating to cats hasn't changed at all. It's exactly the same sentiment now, and it's even the same George Musa quote. You know what I mean? It's
oh yeah, he was toe tagged, man. Yeah, that was. I forgot all about that. And then when you premiered it, I started listening to it. I said, "Oh, now I remember. Yeah, that was classic, man. Good move."
The thing about that particular thing was that Katz was really quite pleasant. I think you'll agree. He was quite cordial.
Yes.
Well, little did we know that he'd turn into a bit of a weasel after mingling with ballers. But he has. He's just gone down the same slippery slope as all of them do. But had we have known that, the pummeling would have been a lot more severe. But he hadn't been a prick at that point.
Well, yeah. I still talk to him. Initially, we were on pretty good speaking terms. In fact, Conspiracy Cats and I talked on a number of occasions. And he was even jovial, like, okay, give me your flat earth proofs and let me have a go at them. And I said, no problem. I gave him all the 4 proofs that I had. I said, take your time. When you get a chance, go ahead and give me your rebuttals and see if there's any holes in them. And he goes, no problem. And the next day, either the next day or the day after, he wrote me back. He goes, I'm going to make a video on those 4 proofs. And I said, really? Because I was pretty surprised that somebody would do that. I said, all right, go ahead. So the week went by and I went ahead and messaged him. I said, well, where's the video? He goes, dude, I couldn't get I couldn't get past the first proof.
Wow.
That was the Solar. I couldn't get
admission.
Past that one.
I mean, but that at the time seemed, like that sort of conciliatory admission was what Anthony assumed would be the progression that guy took. He's like, look, this guy's on the verge of being a flat earther. He's asking all the right questions, and he wants to interview me about flat Earth. And Anthony cordially agreed and did the interview with not kind of a debate, but with open questions that they both gone over before the fact and agreed upon. So they both knew the context, both knew the questions that were going to be asked, and when it actually came to showtime, the responses changed from being sort of science-based, teacher-based, logical responses to the standard rhetoric that would be given out by ballers about NASA and space and all this bullshit that wasn't scientifically valid. And for me, that was the point that he changed, because he just threw out all of his scientific understanding in favour of rhetoric. I was like, that's the moment, that's the start. He was on a knife edge, he's gone the other way, and it was a descent from there on in. That was when he was still going under GCSE A-level and GCSE A-level and I can't remember what the name of the channel was. Something about a science, GCSE A-level science or something like that.
Right. In fact, I had that feeling initially also. I thought that, he was pretty rational. He seemed like he had some education behind him. He thought through the topics that I brought up, gave, measured responses, amiable chap. And I thought that it was just only a matter of time. That's why I left it alone. I said, pretty cordial about the whole deal. He knew I wasn't playing any games. He got that impression right quick. And I thought to myself, it's not going to take very long. He's going to be a flat earther. Well, like you said, he got around the wrong people. Something happened, man, and just, circled the drain. And then it got a little snippy between us, even recently. So I feel bad about that, but what can you do?
That's his problem. I mean, in that regard, it's going to be snippy on topic, right?
Yeah. It was the topic subjects, right?
Yeah, no doubt, gas pressure, right?
Yeah. Well, all the arguments, from my position, he was weaseling. He wouldn't answer my questions. He'd answer another question, then come back to the, and never answer my questions. Direct questions. And I'm saying, listen, I'm not playing this game, man. I mean, if you're going to go down the straw man, red herring fallacy road, I'm not chasing this. There's no way. I got better things to do with my time.
I totally agree. I give up on a lot of these people fairly quickly because you realise that they are just, like, say, straw man or red herring fallacy. And you're just like, no, I don't want to get in this game where I'm taking apart a straw man and reiterating my argument. And then 2 or 3 steps further down and begging the question fallacy with your response that I've got to unpick those 2 steps, get us back to your straw man, and then bring us back on point in the response. No. Just discard these waste of space people. That's my attitude. So I'm not exactly Mr. Flat Earth current affairs anymore, which is terrible considering I run a Flat Earth debate show. Because 9 times out of 10, if you say, have you watched this? The answer will be no, not at all. But it's about you. It's specifically... No, I haven't watched it. I gave up on that person ages ago. I don't care if they're talking about me. Good, thank them for the advert, and I'll get on with what I'm doing. But one thing I will ask you if you did watch, because I'm sure I specifically asked you to at least check it out, for some... You might not care, you'll probably say no because of this reason, but for some psychological insight into cats. Did you see his interview with Haunted House?
I did not.
Okay. I mentioned it on the show.
Not that I didn't want to. Can go ahead and can you link that?
I will, but rather than you having to arduously go through it and pick out the bits that are relevant, given that you do so much work for these presentations, I think it's only reasonable that I do the same and go out and pick out the relevant bits for you. But there's some specifics in there that maybe just one, where he's detailing the reason that he doesn't want to be a flat earther, if you like. And he's basically saying that he'd have to accept that lots of other lies have been told to him. You know, he'd have to accept that the people who are worthy of trust when you're a baller or a normie aren't actually worthy of trust. And that terrified him to the point of lack of sleep. Now, obviously, he was a little bit weaselly about how he phrased it from own self-censorship and potential embarrassment, but he was very relaxed thanks to Jonathan Haunted House and his approach to the whole thing, and therefore he was actually very revealing about it. And when he was, I felt some semblance of the link that was originally there with him. I felt some empathy for the guy. I'm like, yeah, now I know where you are in your journey. I do feel a bit of sympathy. By the same token, you are a complete bastard now. So, I'm going to just make everybody aware that interview's there so they can actually get also get an insight into how and why you behave the way you do, talking to cats in the third person.
You know what's so ironic?
What?
I found that Channel Q video, and I'm going through it trying to find the exact spot where Pete made his thing. Well, as soon as you said that, you're gonna do me a favor. I'm doing the same damn thing right here with Cat. I got the video. I can't find the exact spot though. It's driving me nuts.
If we're chatting a little bit longer, I mean, the conversation may dry up. If it does, I'll just end the recording. But if we're still chatting, I've been watching in my little preview window, you going through it actually and saying, okay, what's he? I haven't asked because I can see you struggling to find what you're looking for.
Oh, really? You can see me?
Well, it's
I'm still staring at my screen.
No. It's fine. It's the little, the little window that you always close in the corner.
Yeah.
So I can. It's 3 inches by 3 inches. It's not exactly a great preview of what you're doing, but I've got a vague idea, and you've already told me what you were looking for, so I could just see you were looking for it. If you do happen to find it, I'll grab the link from you and I'll play it so it goes out on this recording, because then it contextualizes the conversation with Pete a bit better. Because that got quite heated.
Hold on 1 second.
This is John looking for his
hey, I got dinner coming up, man. I can go for about another 10 minutes.
No worries. Do you think you won't find it?
It's driving me absolutely crazy. He's holding that stupid stick, but I don't see the ball or the felt pen on it. I mean, it's really...
Don't worry about it. What I'll do is, because you've got food coming, it's been a good show, end on a high, been very informative. I'll round out the recording, John, if that's good by you.
That's fine, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. So with that, I'll say another thank you to Quantum Eraser for making that presentation and delightful after show conversation possible. Also a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you in the Nathan Oakley premiering stream for tuning in, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!